Hello everyone, welcome to week 8 of my 100-week art challenge. My name is Michael, and through this 100-week art challenge, I'm exploring my personal artistic voice. I also document and share this journey in my videos. This week, I once again ran into a serious creative block. I spent days pondering over the recent illustrations I had created ever since I started this challenge about 2 months ago. In my third week video, I mentioned that I became quite interested in illustration. However, I also mentioned that my interest might change over time, knowing myself well based on the past 2 years of self-teaching art. And here is that time again, feeling confused, lost, worried, and scared. In order to express this creative block, this week I made this illustration about the struggle I had experienced with art, mainly about deciding on which artistic path to embark on, and more importantly, which artistic path to actually stay on. Aside from the many confusing paths, there are also a lot of challenges and unexpected obstacles on the way, such as self-doubt, fear, and boredom, which are represented by the spooky yellow eyes in the distance, lurking, and they repeatedly come at me at the least expected moments. Leaving my engineering job to study art was no doubt a drastic move, but in the grand scheme of things, it was merely a start. During the past 2 years of taking art classes online, plus the art education I received in an atelier environment in my childhood, I have tried many different media and subject matters. Yet I'm still struggling to find an artistic path which is so powerful and personal that I would genuinely be excited about, and even in the case of no prospect of making a profit, I would still do it because of the opportunities it provides for self-expression and impact. I think this artistic path should be more accurately called my personal artistic voice. It's about everything related to my art: the purpose, the motivation, the media, the techniques, the subject matter, and how I wanted to influence the audience, etc. Every aspect is a moving puzzle that I have been trying to figure out through trial and error. As a quick review of my history of studying art, in my childhood between age 10 to 14, I spent a lot of my holidays in atelier. I did a lot of pencil drawings, watercolor paintings, and gouache paintings. These efforts were led by my art teacher, and the truth is that I didn't really enjoy much of these routine still life and figure drawing exercises. It actually made me associate art with boredom, and certainly has decreased my interest in art in the long term. After I stopped attending the atelier around age 14, I hardly drew or painted anything until graduate school and after I started working as an engineer in my early 20s. For a while, I was very drawn to tight portraits and illustrations. Aside from painting as a hobby, I was secretly playing with the idea of becoming a 3D animator someday. It sounds really cool to work on feature animations. Then MacCourseControlPaint.com helped me realize that there was an occupation called concept artist, and I could potentially make a living as an artist working on awesome movies and games. So after leaving my engineering job, I began taking online classes hoping to improve my art fundamentals and eventually land a job in the entertainment industry. Using digital media, I practiced portrait painting, studying caricature and exaggeration to design characters in a style that might be used in animation, incorporating 3D sculpting software to make character reference models, studying quick gesture drawings that capture motion and feelings, copying movie stills and doing master studies, enhancing my understanding of value, edge, color, and texture by taking art fundamental classes, more portrait studies using loose brush strokes. Still feeling not good enough, I went back to do geometric form studies to improve my understanding of art fundamentals. Other than these exercises, I also binge-watched multiple classes on Schoolism.com and LearnSquared.com, as well as read multiple books related to art fundamentals and entertainment design, including digital painting, pictorial composition, painting with light and color, designing with color and light, fundamentals of lighting, lighting for story and concept art, environment design, storyboarding, narrative concept art, sketch anything, environment painting and world building, imaginative realism by James Gurney, color and light by James Gurney, how to draw by Scott Robertson, and how to render by Scott Robertson. It was through all of these studies and more accurately trials, I finally learned the error. It took me quite a while to admit to myself that during these exercises and studies, I had brief moments of excitement and enjoyment, but I never felt greatly motivated. I realized that even though I believed a career in the entertainment industry was what I wanted, the goal was not determined after deep introspection and careful consideration. I had loosely combined my interest in art and my interest in great movies into a potential stable occupation without fully understanding myself. My eyes were solely on the jobs with steady pace. I even bought a gaming console last year, trying to make myself interested in video games so that I can potentially work in game studios as well, even though I had never cared for video games. I believe my tunnel vision was largely driven by fear, influenced by my upbringing and my background. From settling in a well-paid engineering job to pursuing another steadily paid commercial artist job, every decision, every step of the way, there are 100 voices in my head, and they just might have never been my own. I had talked about this in my previous videos as well. In short, this is the reason why I started this 100-week art challenge, to truthfully document the process of me finding my personal artistic voice, while trying my best not to let financial security or any other external factors influence my decisions. Of course, completely ignoring financial security is not only impractical, but also quite irresponsible. I'm currently still supporting myself with savings earned through my engineering job, and if money indeed became an urgent issue one day, with my skill sets in so many areas and my frugality, I could always sustain myself through a part-time job or freelancing. I have worked in grocery stores before, and returning to that is also an easy option. With financial worries out of the way, the mission of this 100-week art challenge became a lot more clear. For the past 2 months, I have been basically illustrating my life experiences and sharing these illustrations in my videos. I was my own art director. I absolutely enjoyed the freedom, but I also felt something was not quite right. Perhaps partially because I have been so meticulous in my approach to illustration, even though the end results showed a lot of creative freedom, it felt less so during the process of making them. Oftentimes, I would first come up with a vague idea, and then I would try to bring it alive line by line, brush by brush, steadily and slowly, hoping that the end result would live up to the initial vague idea. This process usually involved a ton of reference search and drawing carefully from these references. Certainly, the drawing part will become smoother down the road with my drawing skills improving, however, the process still seemed a bit too controlled and restrictive. Aside from the actual physical process of illustrating, I also felt that illustration as a career might not be able to provide enough creative freedom for me. In my opinion, generally speaking, illustration is more liberating than entertainment design, but illustration, as indicated by the name itself, must revolve around a concrete idea. The artwork, regardless of its artistic merits, must first and foremost serve to illustrate certain objects, ideas, or sometimes certain feelings to the audience. This problem-solving aspect can be super interesting to some people, but maybe not so fun to others. In the past, I have essentially been drawing and painting to illustrate, whether it's still life or portraits, or more imaginative and fun pieces that show complex ideas and feelings. The subjects of all of these efforts just seemed a bit too figurative, and the end goals were a bit too definite and well-defined. I began to wonder if this aspect alone would have generated enough creative restraints for me that I never truly felt liberated while working on improving my art. On top of that, I can only imagine in the real world working with art directors. I would much likely feel even more restrained than drawing for myself. I can confidently say that I'm very easy to work with, however, that is oftentimes the result of compromising my own desires. So in summary, through the past 2 months of illustrating, I have found myself not 100% enjoying the physical process, the creative purpose, and the interpersonal nature of illustration. I am in need of exploring and experimenting with some alternative approaches to feel more expressive and less restrained throughout every aspect of my artistic endeavor. As indicated by my history of studying art, I have always been solely interested in the applied arts. Even in fine art, I was always drawn to the ones that straightforwardly tells a story, or at the very least, with recognizable forms. I'm starting to shift my interest and remind myself that what I enjoy seeing might not necessarily be what I enjoy creating. I have always wanted my art to convey and evoke emotions, and what if I really focus on that instead of trying to impress people with meticulously drawn figures and objects? What if I simply introduce abstraction into my artwork that provides me with more expression and freedom, while still keep enough figuration to satisfy my desire to illustrate and communicate? What if I also incorporate both traditional and familiar digital media in my process? What if instead of creating 100 mediocre pieces of art for various purposes that do not have much impact, I instead concentrate the same amount of energy and resources into one piece that I would truly feel proud of, especially considering the fact that I have yet produced a piece of artwork which I found worthy and I could comfortably call it a piece of art. There can be a million what-ifs, but I'm glad that my mind opened up a bit more. It's like peeling an onion. Layer by layer, the fear and the constraints are torn away. I'd also like to mention that I am a highly self-critical person, so I already question myself over and over again if I was just being impatient or being lazy and couldn't power through the hard times or couldn't face the challenges associated with a certain path, and I know for sure it's none of these things. If I sense I wouldn't enjoy it in the long run, shouldn't I adjust my direction as soon as possible instead of devoting another 10 years into something I had to eventually turn away from, especially when I no longer have the luxury of being in my 20s? Furthermore, I certainly don't think it's worthwhile to have abandoned a lucrative and hard-earned engineering career to simply pick up an art career which I don't truly feel passionate about. And I also know that if I don't do what I absolutely feel passionate about, I'm going to burn out quickly and it's not going to be sustainable. I simply no longer want my life to suffer through unwanted pains in exchange for materialistic goods. I know it's very idealistic and some might call it naive, but I have enough life experience to know that life should not be reduced to mere existence. I have been indoctrinated and bullied long enough to believe that work is supposed to be full of teeth grinding, and I no longer accept and believe that mindset anymore. Figuring out and doing what I am truly passionate about should be the priority, even if it means a very humble life materialistically. Now I am 2 months into my 100-week art challenge, and it's actually quite nice that I realized the need to further open up my mind and adjust my direction, how I want to do art, what art actually means to me, and what kind of artist I want to be. Perhaps when it comes to my art, it will never be a destination, but a lifelong journey of exploring. However, it's important to have at least long periods of clarity and stability so that I can actually build it up and expand from it. So I'm eager to start my new week and begin exploring other possibilities in art. That's all for the 8th week of my 100-week art challenge. I hope you have enjoyed me sharing a very introspective and personal journey of studying art, of gradually breaking away from mental barriers to be brave enough to explore my personal artistic voice and to fully embrace creative freedom. My introspective art journey can also be found in written format on my website at michaelandart.com. I also hope that my new illustration about my struggle with art, the feeling of being lost, plus all of the other demons along the way have resonated with you. Please give this video a like and comment below with any questions or advice. To follow the journey of me finding my personal artistic voice through this 100-week art challenge, please subscribe to my channel. Please also share my videos to people who you think might benefit from my experience and exploration. Thank you and have a wonderful one. I will see you next week.